Hideo Kojima is widely considered to be one of the best developers in the gaming medium, and that notion has only been built on top of a consistent push for innovation and building games that stay with players long after the credits have rolled. There's little doubt that out of all of his games, Metal Gear Solid is one of the most beloved, and has garnered a huge legacy with multiple entries that are both functionally and visually distinct from one another. After the infamous Konami/Kojima breakup, the Metal Gear Solid franchise was left shattered in ruins. The Japanese gaming giant tried to breathe some life back into the brand with Metal Gear Survive, and, well, we all know how that panned out. Now, though, we are standing at a very interesting point, because Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is just looming over the horizon. It's not a secret that most fans would be skeptical of such a remake now that Kojima isn't behind the reins, but Konami and Virtuos Studios have managed to garner quite the confidence with its recent showcases, to the point that I am genuinely excited for this release.
交換20分前。
機内減圧開始。装備チェック。アームメインパラシュート。
よし、準備はいいか。
高気圧、依然として目標地域に停滞中。キャム OK。
いいぞ、視界は良好だ。
As someone who grew up with the PS2, most of my formative experiences have been playing through action-adventure games that were quite popular among friend circles at the time. I distinctly remember watching war movies about guerrilla warfare and thinking to myself, this could be a really great concept for a video game. Sure, I had played the likes of Splinter Cell, Hitman 2, Silent Assassin, or even previous Metal Gear Solid releases before, but none that had scratched the itch that I described previously. It wasn't the time of widely accessible internet, so information about upcoming games and what to play was supplied by ever-growing friend groups rather than ranked online lists. I was earnestly searching for games that would explore this concept of guerrilla warfare, and someone recommended trying out Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which had just come out. I immediately scrambled for cash and got myself a copy of the game, and was absolutely blown away by what was on offer here. It almost felt like Kojima had the same itch as me, but instead of searching for ways to calm that down, he put together a team and built a game that scratched every single box. It stands tall as one of the best games in the entire of the series, but most importantly, it was a game that I must have spent hundreds of hours playing over and over again. And now that we are getting to relive the glory days of Metal Gear Solid through this remake, I am really excited to revisit this classic all these many years later. Much like most games in the franchise, Hideo Kojima wears his style of exposition-heavy storytelling as a badge of honor, and long, drawn-out cutscenes and introductions are a common occurrence for any Metal Gear Solid story. As a teenager living on sugary drinks and a low attention span, it was customary for me to zone out during these emotional beats and just really focus on getting to the meat of things, the sneaking, the beating, and all the carefully choreographed action. But now that I'm an adult with responsibilities and a newfound taste for nuanced stories, I am quite excited to revisit the game with a greater focus on understanding its complicated lore, and unearthing the many layers of its characters, the frailties of war, the whole 9 yards really. It's also great that Metal Gear Solid 3 is the chronological start of the entire timeline, so you don't really need to have a complete understanding of what went down previously to make sense of whatever's going on right now, which also makes it a lot easier to get into for newcomers to the series. Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater was a game that fell way ahead of its time, and that could be attributed to not only how the game looked at the time, but also how it felt to play, and how the developers were able to develop such complex stealth mechanics that worked so well with one another. The boss fights with the likes of the End or the Fear were some of the biggest highlights of the experience, and it shaped my gaming taste for years to come. Metal Gear Solid 3 pushed stealth gameplay forward with its innovative camouflage ideas and smoother shooting mechanics, and that set the gold standard for stealth action games to follow. It played a lot faster than something like, say, Splinter Cell, and had a great sense of flow to its gameplay proceedings that directly influenced developers for generations to follow. Konami has really nailed the essence of the original game, and the power of current-gen hardware has allowed the team to really hone in on the visual end of the experience. Built using Unreal Engine 5, Metal Gear Solid 3's remake flaunts some really great graphics, and things like foliage are brought to life through the use of high-quality assets and modern global illumination solutions. Altering the gameplay can be a really risky task, and more so in this case now that the man behind the franchise isn't a part of the project. Still, the developers have brought quality of life improvements with better animations and smoother gameplay systems that would feel like second nature to anyone accustomed to modern third-person shooters. As such, what we have here is a really safe take on the original, and I think that most fans would agree that this is the best place to be. There are a couple of icks, such as loading screens still being a thing among others, but it's better than going all out on changing the core identity of the game for this remake. Now, I am particularly excited to revisit the sneaking part of Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, because that's where the heart of the tension and creativity in gameplay truly lies. The original taught me patience, improvisation, and how rewarding it feels to outthink rather than outgun your enemies. Crawling through tall grass, carefully managing camouflage, and listening for enemy footsteps were some of the best moments that made me feel like a real operative deep in hostile territory. And now that the remake features better visuals and refined animations, I am quite stoked to see how much more immersive the experience will actually be altogether. Apart from that, I'm also pretty darn excited to experience how much the developers have spared room for creativity, and how can players really tackle those challenges all on their own terms. While I'm glad the developers have avoided tinkering too much with the gameplay formula, I'm also curious about the subtle quality of life changes that could make these moments better without stripping away the challenge. Things like refined controls, better inventory management, and modern camera systems could enhance the flow while keeping the core DNA intact. It's pretty common to hear remakes being branded as a cheap attempt to grab some quick cash off of widely beloved games, but we seldom talk about how they are an important way to preserve the emotional value associated with these games. You see, the best remakes try to recapture the same feelings that you got when you first experienced that game, complete with the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia. Even though Metal Gear Solid 3 on its own remains a joy to play to this very day, it's not going to be as easy to revisit for players who are used to more modern graphics and other gameplay conveniences. As such, a remake not only allows us to revisit this classic in all of its glory, but also introduces some of the best experiences of our time to younger audiences, who have grown up listening to our endless rants about the best games of our time. You see, games are a very social experience for all of us. Despite the single-player nature of such releases, we just love to talk about the best and worst parts of these adventures with our loved ones. We just love to discuss all of the personal stealth stories that we craft along the way, and Metal Gear Solid 3 has a lot of room for that thanks to its ingenious gameplay loop. So yeah, I'm also looking to have basically a lot of drawn-out discussions with my colleagues and friends about reliving this piece of our collective childhood. Despite those initial reservations, to be sure, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is looking like a competent remake that's equal parts an homage to the glorious past and a confident step forwards toward the future. There's a lot riding on its shoulders, to say the least, and hopefully at least it will be able to fulfill its promises, and maybe, just maybe, even revive the franchise in a brand new light. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.